That Washington football team is really fucking good.
Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl. That's I mean it, too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey, Washington football fans, welcome back. So, before I get into Mariota, I just want to talk a little bit about the expectations a lot of Washington fans have going into the offseason. But before I do, if I could ask you to please consider hitting that like button, subscribing down below, and ringing that bell so you can come back and get my takes on all things Washington football team. That would be greatly appreciated. Love you for it. Thanks. So, there are a lot of fans that are setting their expectations for some very unrealistic quarterback targets going into next season. And a lot of them are considering anything outside of these guys to be a complete failure by the coaching staff. These guys want Ron Rivera to go full on Mike Ditka and trade away whatever it takes to get these guys in the building. And if he doesn't, he's failed. Well, I think that's a completely unfair way to judge the coaching staff, and I think it's flawed logic from what we need at the position standpoint. I don't think that these guys have thought out the situation past the positive impact they assume those quarterbacks would give the team. They haven't put any thought into the negative effects, and they really haven't given an honest evaluation of the more realistic options by comparison. Fans seem to think that some magic wand can be waved by Ron Rivera and he can bring anyone he wants here. And if he doesn't, it's because he's bad at his job and he's dumb and he doesn't know who the good quarterbacks are and he doesn't want to help our team. It's just crazy that people assume this kind of stuff. And they don't even think about the fact that these players, for the most part, have no trade clauses. They have to agree to come here. And they're also on teams that don't really want to part ways with them. And they're definitely not going to without a king's ransom or some very important players from us. So maybe some fans are willing to go that route, but they also aren't considering what also comes with these guys. The huge contracts that would completely gut this team over the next few years. You got to ask yourself, is this team just a high-end franchise quarterback away from a Super Bowl win? Because if this only means going to the playoffs a couple times or losing a Super Bowl, it's not worth the damage. So can we win at least one Super Bowl with these guys? And could we do it? Would they offset the cost if we had to trade players away? Because we're not going to have the picks to replace the players. The two biggest names I hear, Aaron Rodgers, who's 38, and Russell Wilson, who's 33, a year older than Cam, mind you. I know, like, Tom Brady is out there well into his 40s, doing it well. And Aaron Rodgers is playing great football, but Russ, whose ability has always been linked to his athleticism, is looking like he's in a bit of decline. I'm not just talking about the finger thing. He's just looked just a step or two slower in the past couple years. And both these guys have 2 years left on their contract that average $40 million a year. And as it stands, after re-signing Leno, before we fill any other needs or re-sign any of the other 20 players whose contracts ended, we're looking at about $37 million worth of cap space going into next season. So we could maybe make it work financially, but we'd be giving away the ability to improve the team anywhere else in free agency. And worse, we'd stand to lose some important pieces this year and some very, very important pieces next year. This year, we wouldn't be able to bring back McCain, Sims, Lucas, Humphreys, Carter, and more importantly, Joey Sly and Tim Settle. It would be hard for us to come up with the money to bring back a kicker. That's how bad it would be. And next year, the contracts that are ending are some big league contracts that are going to really take some money, with Terry McLaurin's contract ending next year. So if we get our franchise quarterback and then lose his best weapon, what's going to happen there? And then Eric Flowers. We're going to get rid of his protection now because we're not going to be able to pay him. Matt Ioannidis, Deron Payne. So between the two seasons, we've lost all the interior pieces except Jonathan Allen. So Settle, Ioannidis, Payne, gone. Then Wes Schweitzer's contract's due. More of the protection for the quarterback, gone. Holcomb, our only good linebacker, gone. And then his backup, Heineke and Everett. So those are the kind of pieces we would stand to lose by bringing these guys on. Are we still a even playoff caliber team? You know, definitely not a Super Bowl caliber team. We start taking pieces like that away. And the picks we trade away to get either of these guys would make it insanely difficult to replace these losses, which it would be anyway, to try to duplicate this and hope you get, replacement guys in the draft. But it would require us hitting consistently and hitting big in the later rounds of the draft, because those are the only picks we'd have, were the ones probably after the third or later. And that's something that the teams these guys came from weren't able to do. Would we be able to duplicate the little bit of success we've had with later round picks? Hard to say. But after trading away all that capital, paying all that money, possibly losing all those players in 2 seasons, we are looking at a 40-year-old quarterback or a 35-year-old quarterback that are going to have their hand out again for a possibly even more ridiculous amount, just to keep them for longer. Or we will have completely wasted all of those resources. If we kept them here for 2 years with the money we're paid, need to be paid, we will have ended up losing several important players and possibly have nothing to show for it. So can we win 2 Super Bowls in a row while not adding any pieces with these guys? Or do we just put ourselves in Seattle's current situation? Having Russ, but hemorrhaging away all the pieces around him because of the money he's making. So what do you think about that? What kind of situation would that put us in? So, outside of the should we case I just tried to make, and back to the could we case, I think, is a much simpler no. Russ's agent has put out 2 lists of teams that he'd be willing to waive his no trade clause for, and we weren't on either. And for the fans that try to dismiss that as, never trust a leaked list or a leaked anything, the most important thing is his wife has flat out said no to the DC area. I don't know if she doesn't like the nightlife or she's worried about some high school sweethearts in Russ. I don't know what it is, but she has said no. Sierra is not down for DC. And Aaron Rodgers has seemed to resolve all the issues from last season. I mean, they might be Super Bowl bound. He's happy as ever in Green Bay. I don't see any chance he ever plays for another team. Hell, they could win the Super Bowl this year and he could retire. So I really don't see him as an option at all. Now, we also have Deshaun Watson, people talking about Deshaun Watson, which is just crazy all around. Yes, his contract is crippling, but his legal trouble should wipe him completely off the board as an option. I know nothing's happened in a while, so it's kind of died down, but he's still not playing, and he may never play in the NFL again. We don't know how this is all going to turn out. Nobody should even be talking about him as far as the Washington football team goes. His charges are way too close in nature to what just led to our own troubles and led to a huge company-wide purge. So even if he made sense financially, the optics completely kill that as an option. And finally, we have Derek Carr. I just want to say, anyone who thinks a new coaching staff is going to come to Las Vegas, look around at what they have on that team and go, you know what? I'm going to trade away my best piece at the most important position on the team. Let's do that. I'm going to trade away the little bit of stability I have on this team, and then I'm going to try to replace it where we sat all the way back late in the first round in a bad quarterback class. Even if they could trade Derek Carr away for a top 10 pick, it wouldn't be a good option in this class with this quarterback class. So, honestly, I think the idea of them trading him away is crazy. I don't see it happening. But I want to ask honestly, how good is Derek Carr compared to Marcus Mariota? We're going to take a look at that. But first, I just want to stress how important coaching continuity and the support of players, the type of players you have, the quality of your teammates is for the development of a young quarterback. Rodgers, first of all, had 3 years to set behind an all-time great while having the same head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback coach for the first 7 years of his career. That's his rookie contract plus 2 years. That complete continuity with the coaching staff. And along with that, his offensive help came from Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, and John Kuhn. He had a great group of weapons around him. Russell Wilson, while he didn't have any quarterback mentor, But he had the same coaching situation. 7 years, complete continuity. And along with that, he also has had the same head coach his entire career. He started out with Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, Sidney Rice, Golden Tate, and Zach Miller, which is a solid group of pass-catching weapons. Plus, he had beast mode to lean on when things got tough, but Russ's biggest safety blanket was the most dominant defense in the last 20 years on the other side of the ball, which greatly reduced the pressure on a rookie quarterback when he knows if he throws a pick, it probably won't lead to points, not to mention all the extra possessions, he's gotten and, he's going to get from their picks and just forcing 3 and outs and being the superior defense. So they had a whole lot of consistency and support on their side. Now, I'm not saying Mariota is on Rodgers or Russ's level or even close, but maybe he could have thrived in their situation too. Who's to tell that if it had been Mariota in, Seattle, maybe he could have won a Super Bowl too. I'm going to focus on Derek Carr because even though I think it's unlikely he'll be traded, I've heard the media throw him out there, and I've heard plenty of Washington fans that think he could be the guy. And while I think he's a tier below, Russ and Rodgers, he's only got 1 year left on his contract. It's still a year that's just under 20 mil, which is half of Aaron and Russ's, and he's younger at 30. And it would take less draft capital in theory to bring him here. So bringing him here wouldn't completely gut the team. And since a lot of Washington football team fans consider that an acceptable option, I want to compare him to Mariota. So just like Rodgers and Wilson, Carr actually came into the league with a good supporting cast. Started out throwing the ball to Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper, which is a nice dynamic duo right there. From there, he ended up picking up Jordy Nelson, Jared Cook, Darren Waller. He's had some good options. Mariota, when he came in, he had tight end Delaney Walker and a couple of guys that if I mentioned their names, you might remember, but in a, oh yeah, whatever happened to that guy kind of way. And not a, oh, he was a good wide receiver kind of way. More of the other way, like whatever happened to him, because none of those guys are around anymore. Even only 7 years later. They weren't guys that could stick on. And Carr's coaching situation, though, was a lot more like Mariota's. He had 3 head coaches, 2 offensive coordinators, and 3 quarterbacks coaches in his rookie contract. But Carr at least had a solid 3 seasons of continuity in the middle, and his second season from his 5th under Jack Del Rio. And he also got a bonus with his 3rd coach, John Gruden, who's a bit of a quarterback guru. And John Gruden brought his original offensive coordinator back when he came. So it's nowhere near the continuity that Russ or Rodgers got, but it's still, slightly better than Mariota's 3 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators, 3 quarterback coaches in his rookie deal. He just had no consistency and no continuity at all. And I think if we keep that in mind, the situation that they both had, Carr having slightly more continuity, that solid 3-year stretch, and more talented receiving options, we can see how close these guys really are, which is why I think Mariota could be, just as good a performer for us, with a chance to be even better in a situation he'd have here, and at probably half the price, with no draft capital required to bring him here. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer to me, but that's only if I can swing you to seeing Mariota as a similar level of quarterback to Derek Carr. So I'm going to try to do that. Let's look at their numbers through their first 4 seasons, which is all Mariota really had as a starter. And we can get an idea of the protection they had with the amount of sacks here that each line gave up. I think the disparity is even worse when you take the difference in passing attempts in as well. Meaning not only was Mariota sacked at a higher rate from a game-to-game standpoint, but that rate also came with far less passing attempts. And that means his line had less chances to give up sacks, and they still did it at a considerably higher rate. Carr ending up with 1.8 sacks per game. I mean, that is a bad performance from his line. But then Mariota, his offensive line gave up 2.5 sacks per game. Now, that's hard to get anything going with that, especially in so few attempts. But Carr did have a fair number more attempts. And like I said, he had a better group of receivers. Mariota being a quarterback that rushes a lot, that's another factor when, there being a gap in attempts. And it affects the overall yards. You can see here the amount of attempts more that Carr had over Mariota and how it translated into yards. See how many more yards Carr had over Mariota. And then we can also see the rushing yards Mariota had over Carr, as well as the rushing touchdown. Now, I don't want to look at just yards and touchdowns. I want to look at the stats that show how they did with their attempts. And I think that eliminates the difference in the coaching philosophy, offense type, and support disparity a little bit better. We could maybe get an idea of what Mariota could have done with all things equal. When we look at how Mariota did with his attempts, you can see here how he outperformed Carr on a season-to-season basis. Every season except his third, where Carr passed him a bit in completion percentages. We'll talk about that season later. But the point is, even with less talented wide receivers, Mariota was still completing a higher percentage of his throws for more yards per attempt and more yards per completion. He was just more efficient all around as a passer. Looking at the passing yard difference, in my opinion, it can be boiled down to attempts, play style, receiving talent, with the difference in their receiving talent being what has really led these guys to where they are today. I think Carr being able to shine with very good receiving talent is why he's been able to put up the kind of numbers that have gotten him into the Pro Bowl. And the few times he's been able to get into the Pro Bowl help him carry a bit more prestige. And I'm sure that Mark Davis was not open to any possible trade talk from any coach he's brought in since he drafted Derek Carr. I also think, on a semi-related note to that if Gruden had taken the job at Tennessee instead of Vrabel, Mariota would still be the starter and be doing a lot better. You know, Gruden saw his talent, snatched him out of free agency while he already had a franchise quarterback. He grabbed him up for $17 million as a great insurance policy. Gruden had a great game plan, locked and loaded, ready to go if Carr went down. And when he did, it was a game plan that worked tremendously. And it's one I think that Mariota can be successful with us in a very similar game plan. You know, I know people are going to look at Mariota's 2017 season and judge him too harshly for the 13 and 15 touchdown to interception ratio. But not only was he coming off of a broken leg at the very end of the last season that he, you know, fought through to get back and make it to the season opener, to the broken leg bowl of him and Derek Carr against each other after their leg breaks in week 15. And even in a season filled with a lot more bad breaks in the luck department that led to that ratio, Mariota was actually the 6th lowest quarterback in the league when it came to throwing turnover-worthy throws. He just had the bad luck of all of them being caught. No DB drops, no defenders running into each other, and no plays made by his wide receiver to help him out. Not a single lucky bounce. On top of being the reverse Pat Mahomes, who receives all the possible good luck on turnover-worthy passes. If you actually watch the picks, I think you can make an argument that 6 or 7 of them weren't his fault. And if the wide receivers were just a little bit better, or they just didn't get all the bad bounces in the luck department, that 13 and 15 easily looks closer to 13 and 8. I mean, just look at the picks. You get Rashard Matthews getting mossed by a safety. Your wide receiver 1 should bring that in. See, Rashard Matthews. Vaguely familiar name, right? He's a nobody. You guys know it. Then, DeMarco Murray standing there doing footwork drills instead of actually initiating a block and pass protection. And he just leaves John Simons from the Colt completely free to jump up into the passing lane from the line of scrimmage and just snag a pick 6 out of the air. You know, when Simon comes down from the catch, he ends up not 3 feet away from Murray, and Murray just lets him blow right by for a TD without even putting a hand on him. Kind of tries to chase him, but just can't gain any speed on this like 250-pound looking linebacker, or whatever he was. He looked considerably bigger than Murray, but Murray looked ridiculously slower than him. Also, you got a Robert Golden interception. I mean, it was one of 4 interceptions against the Steelers, but I mean, the other ones were bad throws from Mariota, but this one, even when he makes a good throw across the middle. It bounces across his wide receiver's hands and right back into Robert Golden's hands. Just cannot catch a break. Rashawn Melvin for the Colts. There was he out battles Douglas for a diving pick. Mariota throws it low and away for Douglas to be, in theory, the only one to be able to make a play for this ball. And Douglas kind of half-asses it, doesn't attack the ball, and Melvin full-asses it, jumps it, and it's his ball. So, yeah, just a, half-ass effort from his team, causing him a bad mark on his stat line there. Then you got Tawand Taylor, who just flops to the ground on a 30-yard crossing route at the worst time. It's a timing throw. Lets the ball go before he gets out of the break, and Tawand Taylor just flops to the ground. And then you think he's going to get a lucky break because it bounces off the safety's hands. You think, finally, one of these guys isn't going to catch one of his picks, but then it bounces right into the hands of a cornerback. Unbelievable. And there's another one that might be one part pass interference and one part business decision from the wide receiver, where a DB's holding on to Rashard Matthews' jersey, slowing him down, and the safety, makes a break for the ball for an interception. And I think Matthews, would have gotten there even being held, but he also would have been blown up by the safety had he caught it. And I think he decided that it wasn't worth it and just didn't put that extra bit of boost in it. Then you have a pick against the Bengals in the Bengals game, and it's just bad route spacing all the way, purely a play design. When one linebacker can cover 2 levels in a route, it's just bad route spacing, and that's on the coach. And that could have an easily more respectable 16-9 season at least, especially if you throw in the 242 rushing yards he had and the 5 TDs, make it into a more respectable 21-9 season, for him, like touchdowns he's responsible for. And there's a strong chance that a lot of those drives, if they didn't end there, they could have ended up with more touchdowns, and it could have been a far more impressive season. He still ended up with a higher completion rate and more attempts than the year before. And most importantly, he pulled it all together and forced his team into the playoffs, where he did something Carr hasn't been able to do his whole career. Throw himself a touchdown pass. How fucking cool is that? Oh, and he also won a playoff game that year. That was something else awesome that he did that Carr hasn't done. Mariota was able to do some things in Tennessee that point to some high-end traits that I think could lead to success in Washington. With the higher level talent he'd be working with, from protection to weapons, the play calling, and overall fit for what Ron and Scott are looking for, I really think the sky's the limit for him here. Now, we've seen his ability to use his athleticism to extend plays, buy time, escape pressure, and pick up yards with his legs. He's definitely at the very top end of elite mobility at the quarterback position. And he's got the high-end arm to match. he's done some other things that show off a bit of a clutch ability or gameness. Especially if you watch his last season as a starter, I think it showed the type of quarterback he was developing into. And it's the type of quarterback that can pull you out of some rough spots and win you a lot of games. In 2018, he was the top guy in the NFL at a trio of categories that showed off his clutch play ability. First was the stat that a lot of us Washington football fans went crazy over Fitz leading last year, and also caused a lot of buzz around rookie Justin Herbert for just breaking the top 10. That was the vaunted passer rating under pressure stat, and Mariota was the top dog there in 2018. Not only was his passer rating under pressure higher than anyone else in the league at a 94, that was actually higher than his own base 92 passer rating. Kind of crazy, right? Well, along with that, he led the league in completion percentage under pressure with a whopping 62.5, which was actually higher than Derek Carr's base completion percentage of 61.4 over the first 4 seasons of his career. Mariota also saw a boost to his average yards per attempt while under pressure from a 7.2 to an 8.5, showing off his ability to elevate his game and play his best football when faced with adversity, which was necessary for him in Tennessee with his absolute rubbish supporting cast. Another area he led the league in that points to that clutch, big play ability was passer rating on 3rd and long, where he came out with a 119.4, showing a knack for getting those gotta have yards, keeping drives alive, and reversing any early down misfortune with just that big playmaking ability. And hand in hand with that, and even more important to fitting into what Scott Turner wants to do with this offense, he showed off the deep ball skills, being the top dog with the most completed throws of 20 yards or more with 14 out of 34, which he did while tied with the league high 6 wide receiver drops because, like I've said, Tennessee lacked quality receiving options altogether, and in spite of that, he still ended up with the NFL best 58.8 completion percentage on throws of 20 yards or more. I think 2018 best shows how the constant coaching carousel and weak talent around him has negatively affected Mariota's evaluation as a franchise quarterback. I don't think he fit Vrabel's style. I don't think Vrabel was interested in him from the start. And they definitely lean more on the run game and lessen Mariota's role. But he dug them out of trouble every chance he got, picking up those 3rd and longs when the run game stalled, making the most out of his passes with all those deep balls, and making the absolute best out of a offensive line that was much better suited for run blocking and actually kind of piss poor in pass protection, and just trying to use his legs to keep himself safe and give him time for those much needed deep shots to develop, and being the most efficient when they did. I think Vrabel just had a different idea of what he wanted at quarterback, and maybe just wanted a guy to call his own So they brought in Tannehill the next season, and I'm pretty sure Mariota only got those first 6 starts that he did in 2019 to protect Tannehill. Just until Lewan's suspension was over, and then he got back up to speed, which I think is messed up. You know, they put him out there to absorb 25 sacks in a 4-game period, you know, just to trade him away after that. I really think they did him dirty, and I think Mariota deserves better, and I think he deserves another shot as a starter here in Washington. He's got a lot of tools that fit perfectly into Scott Turner's offense. He's great with play action passes. He had the highest play action passer rating in the league in 2017 with a 122.8 and the highest yard per attempt from play action with a 11.2, which is beautiful with how well we run the ball. Combine that with his arm and deep ball skill, and that can make for a lethal combination here. He's a force of nature in the read option with elite speed and mobility. He also has the durability to actually carry the ball without fear of injury, unlike Heineke. You know, while Mariota has been injured a few times, only 3 have really cost him any games. 8 in total on his rookie deal, which is crazy when you consider one of the injuries was a broken femur. And he only missed 8 total games on his rookie deal. All the injuries, though, have been from his O-line failing him. And, you know, him getting blasted in the pocket. Never as a runner where he was in charge of his own protection. He could use his vision where he could slide, duck out of bounds, lower his shoulder, whatever. It was never on him. Always the O-line folding like a lawn chair. So he's not in any way fragile. And like I showed you before, 2.5 sacks a game on average. That's a little rough for anybody's body to stand up to. But he's a guy that you could and should have carry the ball 10 times a game. He can rip off big gains, and he's big and tough enough that you don't have to worry about a linebacker bearing down on him, especially not these modern linebackers are like 6 foot, 220 pounds when he's 6'4", 225 pounds. It's not really something you have to worry about. And even outside of the option game, he has the threat of mobility on every play. And that will affect defenses in a big way. And can bail us out of a lot of bad situations. He can throw absolute lasers on the run. I'm talking full sprint, avoiding pressure, and rip off 50-yard dots like it's part of the playbook. It's a big reason why he was so highly rated under pressure and in 3rd and long situations. He can get out of the pocket and deliver an accurate ball deep down the field. Accuracy and decision making is a thing that a lot of people are going to question about him, but like I explained with his 2018 season interceptions, you can almost cut his picks in half when it comes to actual mistakes or bad throws from him versus bad play from the receivers, bad route design from the coaches, or just general bad bounces that happen to all quarterbacks. He does make mistakes with the ball, but when you actually look at him, the talent around him accounts for enough of them that you can see him more in line with some of the top guys at the position than the Heineke's or Jameis's that his numbers might seem to line up with at first. And Scott Turner gives me a lot of confidence going forward as our offensive coordinator. Our entire offense is built to make the defense wrong. It's not meant to beat them straight up or to outsmart them. It's more meant to just make whatever they decide to do wrong. Whatever they think they have to defend is wrong. It's always the other thing. And like if Heineke was under center, it was going to be followed by play action to fake out the defenses. But most of the time he was in the shotgun or the pistol. And it was spreading everything out and making it harder on the defenses. Then there was all the pre-snap motion to confuse them, move them around, set up sweeps, get free releases for our guys coming out. But most importantly was the heavy use of RPOs. Scott even had these plays that looked like fake RPOs. I just call them fake RPOs because I don't think that the run was ever an option in these plays. They were kind of designed to just give J.D. McKissick this perfect little creep out route underneath for a check down that was kind of beautiful. Like the offensive architecture of it was beautiful. And this is the future of NFL offenses. RPOs put maximum pressure on defenses, and all the pre-snap motion makes things even tougher to predict and defend. And Mariota might be the perfect quarterback to run this stuff. He's got tons of experience dating all the way back to his days in Oregon, where he was an absolute machine in his first season as a starter. And he looked so good, he got Chip Kelly, his first NFL job, running this high-tempo, no-huddle RPO offense straight down the field, sucking the life out of the defenses. It was great. He's got a lot of experience there. He's got just these little traits that blend him well to it, like a lightning-fast delivery, when he needs to hit that boom-bang, like underneath stuff. Just pull it and bow, hit the slant right off the snap, basically. The whole extended handoff kind of stuff. And Mariota just does his best work in like all the misdirection or confusion type plays. The play action, the RPOs, the read options, all things he excels at, and all things that are highly successful and blend perfectly or already exist in our offense. And they can be cranked up to 11 with an athlete and a quarterback of his level. The thought of having Mariota and Antonio Gibson in the backfield together, running RPOs with Terry Curtis and Diami out there, is just sexy as fuck. I think Scott could make beautiful things happen with Mariota as the signal caller. Mariota still has a tremendous amount of untapped potential. You could see almost his full range of skills and even some improvements on display last season when he had to come off the bench in the beginning of the second quarter against the Chargers. Not unlike how Heineke did to start this season. Now, there was no open competition through camp. Mariota was number 2 to a franchise QB, and he probably didn't get many snaps with the ones. But it did seem like Gruden had been helping him up his game because Mariota looked even more awesome than usual. He came out, flashed his escapability, getting outside the pocket, buying time, hitting some nice throws on the run, or taking off for big gouging runs himself. He had quick, precise throws to beat pressure. He had fadeaway, back foot, off platform, Mahomes-like throws for completions. He even looked much improved sensing pressure. He hung in the pocket and slipped the pressure just the right time, navigating the pocket, buying that time, keeping his eyes down the field to deliver big plays under pressure without abandoning the pocket. And he looked good in play action as always, with some nice time throws, and bullied that defense off read options, designed runs, scrambles, whatever. Anytime he carried the ball, got outside, he was bullying that defense. And he even got some high effort clutch first downs where he had to lower the shoulder and plow through or dive and reach. He also had a flying diving TD that would have made Taylor Heineke blush. He had a design run that would have been a long distance house call if it had been ran behind Logan Thomas or John Bates blocking, instead of Waller kind of half-assing it. Waller just got pushed back by, I'll give him some credit and say it was a linebacker, but it could have been a DB. It just pushed him back into Mariota and pushed him out of bounds. But if he'd had either of our tight ends blocking for him, it was a house call. He had nice touch passes, tight window balls, well-placed tight window balls, check downs, and taking what was there, carving them up and being patient underneath. He had nice sideline passes, and he even managed to drop a couple big bombs over the top. He did throw an interception that was a little behind the receiver and bounced off the receiver's hands right to the defender, as happens with Mariota. Unfortunately, it's just that reverse Mahomes luck. Mahomes has interceptions bounce off defenders' hands to wide receivers for touchdowns, where Mariota gets the opposite. But having high effort guys like Terry instead of Nelson Aguilar should help to fix that. It should make up for that difference. And Mariota did chase that guy down and tackle him to keep it from being a pick six. But for the first game in I think a year and a half, he looked awesome and ended up with a 82.1 PFF grade for the game, which is pretty good for only having Darren Waller and Nelson Aguilar to work with. Yeah, Waller's a beast, but just imagine what he could do with our roster when it's healthy. Imagine what he could do here with Scott building game plans for him with this protection, these weapons. Just having dependable options would be such a huge boost. And once you start boosting a quarterback that's already getting 82 grades with some serious talent, then you start to get pretty close to elite at the position. I think it elevates Mariota's production to crazy levels if he comes here, and our offense would become something to be feared. I really think Marcus Mariota could be a top 10 quarterback here in Washington. And the best part, we could probably get him for $10 million or less. And we'd have plenty left over to actually keep our guys when their contracts come up and fill other needs in free agency. I really think he's our best possible option in every possible metric as far as filling the quarterback position goes. Best fit for the offense, still got untapped top draft pick potential, proven skill set, elite athleticism and arm strength, free agent, so no pick trade required, and very, very low price. Fits money or less, but he is easily worth current Carr money, in my opinion. And we could get him. I think Marcus Mariota is the guy. I think Ron and Scott think so too. He's a super high character guy like Ron likes. He's actually a dream come true for Ron. He's like a Cam Newton type athlete, but quiet and reserved. And he fits what Scott wants to do perfectly. And they were very interested in trading for him, but Gruden just asked a higher price than they were willing to pay because he knew what he had. But he's a free agent now, and I don't see any reason we don't sign him. I think he'll be a top tier superstar franchise quarterback, just like he was supposed to be out of the draft, except we get him here for Washington for a song. All the development's already been done. We just get to reap the benefits for the low price of probably like $10 million a year. I am going to lose my mind with excitement when we do sign him, and I think you guys should be excited too. He's going to go off here. It's going to be amazing. But did I sway you at all? Did I make you excited? Did I change your mind at all about how you think things might be different for Mariota here? Do you think we're just a quarterback away from going to a Super Bowl? Just let me know what you're thinking down below. And please remember to hit that like, subscribe down below, ring that bell so you can come back for my unique takes on the Washington football team. And if you stayed here this long, I definitely love y'all. Peace.